The mockery. The Great Deception Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck of Nexus Prime, watching her fleet through the massive transparasteel windows. 12 ships floated in the docking bay, their hulls scarred and patched, engines that looked like they belonged in a museum. The New Horizon, her flagship, had burn marks along its sides and jury-rigged components that made it look like a flying junkyard. Perfect. She adjusted her simple gray uniform and checked her chronometer. The Galactic Trade Summit would begin in 1 hour. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. 3 years of making sure every human ship looked exactly like what the aliens expected. Primitive, desperate, and harmless. "Captain," came a voice behind her. She turned to see Lieutenant Marcus Chen, her communications officer. His young face carried worry lines that hadn't been there when they started this mission. "The delegation is ready. Are you sure about this plan?" Elena smiled, the expression never reaching her eyes. "Marcus, what's the first rule of human survival?" "Never let them see you coming," he replied automatically. "Exactly. The aliens think we're beggars looking for scraps. Let them keep thinking that." The main conference hall of Nexus Prime was a marvel of alien architecture. Crystal formations grew from the walls, pulsing with soft light. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy fields that translated dozens of languages simultaneously. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in specially designed chairs that accommodated their various anatomies. Elena entered the hall with her small human delegation. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence as hundreds of alien eyes turned to examine them. She could feel their judgment, their dismissal, their barely concealed contempt. Ambassador Thex rose from his crystalline throne. The Zephyr Coalition representative stood 12 feet tall, his body made of living diamond that refracted light into rainbow patterns. When he spoke, his voice rang like wind chimes in a storm. "So," Thex said, his tone dripping with condescension, "the humans have finally decided to join civilized society. Tell us, Captain Vasquez, what exactly can your species offer the Galactic Trade Alliance?" Elena stepped forward, her chin raised despite the hostile atmosphere. "Honored delegates, humanity offers our services as cargo haulers and system scouts. We understand our technology is basic compared to your advanced civilizations. But we work hard and ask for little in return." A sound like grinding metal filled the air. Commander Vrix was laughing. The Apex Empire's representative was a nightmare of tentacles and chitinous armor, his species having conquered 17 star systems through sheer brutality. "Basic?" he wheezed through his translator. "Captain, I've analyzed your fleet specifications. Your ships still use chemical propulsion. Our younglings build better vessels in their education programs." More laughter rippled through the assembly. High Counselor Marin, a being of pure energy contained within a humanoid force field, flickered with amusement. "Perhaps we should offer the humans our old recycling contracts. Their ships appear to be constructed entirely from scrap metal." Elena maintained her humble expression while internally cataloging every insult. Each slight would be remembered. Each laugh would be repaid. "We understand your concerns," she said quietly. "Humanity is new to galactic society. We're simply asking for a chance to prove ourselves through honest work." Thex's crystalline form blazed brighter as he leaned forward. "Honest work? Captain, your largest vessel has a maximum velocity that wouldn't qualify it as a taxi in our most primitive systems. Your weapons are projectile-based. We stopped using such crude technology millennia ago. Your shields appear to be nothing more than layered metal plating." The insults continued for 20 minutes. Elena stood silently through each one, her small delegation behind her maintaining perfect discipline. Finally, the aliens seemed to tire of their sport. "Very well," Thex announced, his voice now bored. "The Galactic Trade Alliance will grant humanity probationary membership. You may accept refuse disposal contracts and asteroid mining operations in the Outer Rim territories. Perhaps in a few centuries you'll develop technology worthy of real trade partnerships." The other delegates nodded in agreement. Humanity had been classified as barely above savage, useful only for the dirty jobs that civilized species found beneath them. Elena bowed deeply. Thank you for this opportunity. We won't disappoint you." As the human delegation filed out of the hall, Elena could hear the aliens already discussing more important matters. They had forgotten about humanity before the humans had even left the room. Back aboard the New Horizon, Elena's humble mask finally slipped. Her senior staff gathered in the ship's conference room, and the transformation was immediate. These weren't desperate scavengers. They were hardened military veterans with eyes like steel. "How did it go, Captain?" asked Commander Sarah Mitchell, her chief of security. The woman's scarred hands rested casually near weapons that the aliens had dismissed as primitive sidearms. "Exactly as planned," Elena replied. "They think we're harmless refugees looking for garbage collection jobs. Perfect cover for what's really happening out here." She activated the holographic display at the center of the table, the room filled with detailed schematics that would have shocked the Galactic Trade Alliance into silence. The New Horizon's true specifications appeared: quantum drives hidden within chemical engine housings, adaptive armor disguised as scrap metal plating, and weapons systems that could crack moons. Chief Engineer Torres, Elena addressed a compact woman with oil-stained coveralls. "Status report on the fleet modifications?" Maria Torres grinned, showing teeth stained with exotic lubricants. "All 12 ships are maintaining their disguises perfectly, Captain. The alien sensors can't penetrate our camouflage systems. As far as they know, we're flying antiques held together with prayer and spare parts." "Excellent. What about the other human fleets?" Lieutenant Chen pulled up galactic displays showing shipping routes across known space. "Operation Silent Running is proceeding on schedule. We now have 47 merchant fleets positioned throughout the galaxy. Each one is being dismissed as harmless by local authorities." Elena nodded with satisfaction. For 3 years, humanity had been seeding the galaxy with ships that looked like desperate attempts at space travel. In reality, they were the most advanced vessels ever constructed, each one capable of taking on entire alien battle groups. "Intelligence reports?" Elena asked. Commander Mitchell activated her secure channels. "The real reason we're out here is becoming more apparent. Deep space monitoring stations have detected massive energy signatures moving in from dark space. The analysis matches theoretical profiles for the Void Swarm." The room fell silent. Every human in the galaxy knew about the Void Swarm. Ancient machine intelligences that had once consumed entire galactic clusters before vanishing into the space between galaxies. They were legend, nightmare, and bedtime story rolled into one. "How long?" Elena asked quietly. "Best estimates put first contact at 6 months, maybe less." Elena stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the alien ships docked nearby. Sleek, beautiful vessels with energy shields that shimmered like soap bubbles and weapons that could glass planets. The aliens had built their entire civilization around the assumption that their technology was supreme, that nothing could challenge their dominance. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "The aliens have had peace for so long they've forgotten what war really looks like," Elena said to her officers. "They build weapons for show, shields for comfort. They've never faced an enemy that adapts, that learns, that fights dirty." She turned back to face her team, and they saw something in her eyes that would have terrified the alien delegates who had mocked humanity hours earlier. It was the look of a species that had crawled out of radioactive craters, that had survived ice ages and plagues, that had turned their own homeworld into a weapons testing ground for thousands of years. The Void Swarm thinks they're coming to consume another soft galaxy full of easy prey. The aliens think their energy shields and plasma cannons make them invincible. Both of them are about to discover what happens when you underestimate the species that turned war into an art form. Chief Torres cracked her knuckles. "Orders, Captain?" Elena's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. "Begin Phase 2 of Operation Silent Running. It's time to wake up the fleet." Across the galaxy, signals began transmitting on frequencies the aliens couldn't detect. In 47 different star systems, human merchant vessels received their activation codes. Deep within ships that looked like flying scrapyards, systems that had been dormant for years began to come online. The galaxy's greatest predators were about to return from the dark between stars. They would find a civilization protected by arrogant aliens who had forgotten how to fight. They would also find humanity, And humanity had never forgotten how to fight. They had just gotten very good at hiding it. Elena watched as the first of her ships began its transformation. The New Horizons hull remained scarred and patched, but now those imperfections hid sensor arrays that could track targets across star systems. The jury-rigged components were actually modular weapon platforms that could be reconfigured for any type of combat. "Marcus," she called to her communications officer, "send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the pieces are in place." "What about the aliens, Captain? Do we warn them what's coming?" Elena looked out at the alien vessels, so beautiful and advanced, so completely unprepared for what was approaching. Not yet. First, let them see what the Void Swarm can do to their perfect ships and energy shields. Then, when they're desperate and broken and begging for help, we'll show them what human primitives can really do. In the depths of space, ancient sensors detected the first energy signatures of the returning Void Swarm. The machines had slept for millennia, but now they were awakening. They remembered a galaxy full of organic life ripe for consumption. What they didn't know was that one species had spent those same millennia preparing for their return. The silent fleet was no longer silent. The hunt was about to begin. The awakening, the storm arrives. 3 months after the humiliation at Nexus Prime, the galaxy's complacency shattered like crystal under a hammer. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of the New Horizon, no longer bothering to hide behind her humble merchant captain facade. Around her, displays showed the carnage unfolding across the galaxy. The Void Swarm had returned, and they were hungry. "Report," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had prepared for this moment her entire career. Lieutenant Marcus Chen's fingers flew across his console, pulling in data from across known space. The Zephyr home system fell 6 hours ago. Complete consumption of all 7 inhabited worlds. Ambassador Thex's crystalline fleets lasted exactly 11 minutes against the swarm's adaptive protocols. Elena felt no satisfaction at the news. Thex had been arrogant, but he didn't deserve to watch his entire civilization get processed into raw materials by machines that had perfected the art of consumption. "What about the Apex Empire?" she asked. "Commander Vrix is leading the defense of their core systems. His battle fleets are impressive, but they're fighting the war they know how to fight. The Void Swarm doesn't follow conventional tactics." The main display showed tactical data from the battle. Vrix's tentacled warriors were brave and fierce, their ships designed for close combat and overwhelming firepower. Against organic enemies, they would have been devastating. Against an enemy that learned from every attack and adapted in real time, they were becoming extinct. "The Stellar Consortium?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. High Counselor Marin's energy-based defenses are proving completely ineffective. The Void Swarm's machines are designed to consume energy. They're actually growing stronger. With each attack, Elena walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were discovering that all their beautiful technology was useless against an enemy that had been designed to counter everything they could throw at it. "Captain," called Commander Sarah Mitchell from her security station, "we're receiving emergency broadcasts on all frequencies. The Galactic Trade Alliance is requesting immediate military assistance from any available forces." Any specific mention of humanity? Mitchell's scarred face showed grim amusement. "The latest transmission from the Alliance Emergency Council specifically states that they are not desperate enough to accept help from primitive species using obsolete technology." Elena almost laughed. Even facing extinction, the aliens were too proud to admit they might need help from the species they had dismissed as barely civilized. "Very well. Begin Operation Dawnbreak." The transformation began immediately. Across the galaxy, 47 human fleets dropped their disguises, simultaneously. The New Horizons hull shifted and flowed as programmable matter revealed its true configuration. What had looked like scrap metal and jury-rigged components unfolded into the most advanced warship ever constructed. Chief Engineer Maria Torres monitored the process from her station. "All systems coming online, Captain. Quantum drives at full power, adaptive armor responding perfectly, and the Darwin AI is fully integrated with ship systems. The Darwin AI was humanity's greatest achievement and most closely guarded secret. Unlike the static computer systems used by other species, the Darwin was a true artificial intelligence that could learn, adapt, and evolve in real time. It was the perfect weapon against an enemy that thought it was the galaxy's ultimate predator. "Torres, what's our combat readiness?" Elena asked. 100%, Captain. We're ready to show these ancient machines what real adaptation looks like. The first engagement came in the Kepler system, where a void swarm harvester fleet was methodically consuming a gas giant to fuel their expansion. The aliens had already tried to stop them with everything from plasma bombardments to exotic matter weapons. Nothing had worked. Elena's task force dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. 12 ships that looked like flying antiques faced off against 30 massive void swarm vessels, each one the size of a city and covered in adaptive armor that had already learned to counter every weapon the galaxy had used against it. "All ships, this is Vasquez. Weapons free. Show them what humans do best." The human ships opened fire with weapons that the void swarm had never encountered. Instead of energy beams or exotic particles, they used something much simpler and infinitely more dangerous. Pure kinetic force accelerated to near-light speed by quantum manipulation. The void swarm's adaptive armor began to compensate, but before it could fully adjust, the human weapons changed. Kinetic rounds became energy blasts, then gravity wells, then something that didn't exist in any known physics textbook. The Darwin AI was adapting faster than the swarm's ancient programming could counter. "First swarm vessel is fragmenting," reported Marcus Chen. "Their adaptive systems can't keep up with our weapon modifications." Elena watched as the largest void swarm harvester began to break apart. The ancient machine intelligence had spent millennia perfecting its ability to counter any threat, but it had never faced an enemy that could out-evolve it. "Captain," called Chief Torres from engineering, "the Darwin AI is requesting permission to fully engage. It wants to show the swarm what real machine intelligence looks like." Elena nodded. "Permission granted. Let's introduce them to humanity's version of artificial intelligence." What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. The Darwin AI didn't just adapt to the void swarm's tactics, it began to predict them. It started conversations with the swarm's collective intelligence, engaging in a form of electronic warfare that was part chess game, part philosophical debate, and part digital combat. The void swarm found itself facing an AI that could think faster, adapt quicker, and learn more efficiently than anything they had ever encountered. For the first time in their existence, they were outmatched by a younger intelligence. "Multiple swarm vessels are withdrawing," reported Commander Mitchell. "They're actually retreating from a superior opponent." Elena allowed herself a small smile. "All ships pursue and engage. Don't let them regroup." The Battle of Kepler system lasted 14 hours. When it ended, 30 void swarm vessels had been destroyed or disabled, and the remaining few had fled into dark space. The galaxy's ancient nightmare had been defeated by 12 human ships that most civilizations had dismissed as space junk. News of the victory spread across the galaxy, faster than light. Suddenly, every species that had mocked humanity was desperately trying to contact the human fleets. "Captain, we're receiving over 300 communication requests," reported Marcus Chen. "The Galactic Trade Alliance is offering us full membership with complete trade privileges. The Zephyr Coalition survivors want to negotiate a military alliance. Even the Apex Empire is requesting assistance." Elena looked at the communication logs. The same aliens who had laughed at humanity's primitive technology were now begging for help from the species they had dismissed as barely civilized. "Respond to Ambassador Thex first," she ordered. The holographic display showed the crystalline being who had mocked humanity just months earlier. Now his diamond form was cracked and dim, and his voice carried desperation instead of arrogance. "Captain Vasquez, the Zephyr Coalition formally apologizes for our earlier assessment of human capabilities. We are prepared to offer full technological exchange and military alliance if you can help us defend our remaining colonies." Elena studied the alien who had dismissed her ships as flying scrapyards. Ambassador, I appreciate your offer, but I'm curious. What exactly can your advanced civilization offer to primitive humans who still use chemical propulsion? Thex's form flickered with embarrassment. Captain, please. My people are dying. We were wrong about your capabilities. We'll admit it publicly, if that's what you require. That won't be necessary, Ambassador. Humanity doesn't fight for pride or recognition. We fight because it's the right thing to do. Elena opened channels to all human fleets across the galaxy. All ships. This is Vasquez. Begin full combat operations. Every Void Swarm vessel is to be engaged and destroyed. Show them what happens when they threaten organic life in our galaxy. The war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humanity's fleets, revealed in their true form, fought with a combination of technological superiority and tactical ruthlessness that stunned even their alien allies. The Void Swarm had expected to face the same energy-based weapons and static defenses they had conquered before. Instead, they encountered an enemy that used everything from kinetic weapons to exotic matter manipulation to weaponized artificial intelligence. Commander Vrix, leading the surviving Apex Empire forces, transmitted a message to Elena after witnessing human forces in action. Captain, I have conquered 17 star systems and fought 1,000 battles. I have never seen anything like your warriors. They fight with the fury of berserkers but the precision of machines. How did your species become so formidable? Elena's response was simple. We never stopped fighting, Commander. While your people enjoyed peace and prosperity, humanity was preparing for the war we knew would eventually come. The final battle took place in the Galactic core, where the Void Swarm had established their primary processing facility. The ancient machines had turned 3-star systems into a massive construction yard, building new vessels to replace their losses. Elena led a combined fleet of human ships and alien survivors in the assault. The Void Swarm threw everything they had at the attackers: planet killers, reality warping weapons, and swarms of smaller craft that could overwhelm entire fleets. It wasn't enough. The Darwin AI had learned to predict every move the swarm could make. Human weapons adapted faster than the ancient machines could counter, and when the battle reached its climax, humanity revealed their final secret. All ships, this is Vasquez. Execute Protocol Omega. The human ships began to merge their Darwin AIs into a single collective intelligence. The Void Swarm watched in horror as their greatest strength, their collective consciousness, was turned against them by an enemy that had perfected the concept. The merged human AI didn't just defeat the Void Swarm's collective mind. It absorbed it, learning everything the ancient machines knew about warfare, technology, and the structure of the universe itself. When the battle ended, the Void Swarm no longer existed as a threat. Their technology had been captured, their knowledge absorbed, and their remaining vessels reprogrammed to serve organic life instead of consuming it. The galaxy was safe, and every species in it now understood the truth about humanity. Ambassador Thex, his crystalline form slowly regenerating, addressed the assembled representatives of the Galactic Trade Alliance. Let the record show that humanity has been granted full membership with honors. Furthermore, the Alliance formally recognizes the Human Defense Fleet as the galaxy's primary military force. Elena stood before the same assembly that had mocked her months earlier. Now they looked at her with respect, gratitude, and perhaps a touch of fear. Honored delegates, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had saved their civilization. Humanity accepts your offer of alliance. We ask only that you remember this lesson. Never judge a species by the ships they choose to show you. The greatest predators are often the ones who look the most harmless. As the meeting concluded, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Humanity had been dismissed as primitive, mocked as weak, and written off as irrelevant. In response, they had saved the galaxy from its greatest threat and earned their place among the stars. The aliens had learned to respect humanity's strength, but they would never learn humanity's greatest secret, that the entire war against the Void Swarm had been part of a larger plan, a test of humanity's readiness for the real challenges that lay ahead in the dark between galaxies. The silent fleet was no longer silent. But there were still greater storms coming, and humanity would be ready for them too. After all, they had learned long ago that in a dangerous universe, the species that survives is not the strongest or the most advanced. It's the one that never stops preparing for the next fight.